Hello, everybody. My name is Max, and welcome to another B2 First Speaking Lesson. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at a lot of sample questions. We're going to take a look at real answers. We're going to take a look at some problems that may arise when you're having this test. We're going to see how we can deal with them, and also a lot of good languages we're going to learn in this lesson. So, without any hesitation, let's begin. All right, so let's take a look at our question. So we've got a question here which says, how could each of these trips benefit students? So we've got a city sightseeing tour, we've got a weekend camping trip in mountain, a beach activity day, a visit to a theme park, and a visit to a museum or art gallery. Now, I want you to take a look at some good vocabulary that I just put down here. I want you to see how can you use these expressions, phrases to put it in the answer. I want you to practice this right now. I want you to think how you can answer that question using those ideas and the vocabulary down below. I'm going to read the vocabulary as well, or the phrases down here, so that you can just be kind of a little bit familiar. So the first one is become more self-confident, become more independent, learn to work in a team, cope in another language, be educational, make a change from their everyday lives, get a real thrill, have new experiences, appreciate other cultures, learn teamwork, tough conditions, get away from their daily routine. So get a real thrill means real excitement. Cope means just deal with another language. So I want you to take a look at this and try to come up with some answers, because with these words you can create tons of answers. But remember, you cannot talk more than 20 to 25 seconds. Just have to talk a little bit about what you think using these words, and then ask question and letting the other candidate talk. And then again, you react to what he said or what she said, and then try to again build her idea and just talk about your own opinion again. So you can pause the video, you get a little bit of practice, you can create some sentences, and you see how you can answer this question. Then we're going to take a look at the sample answer. All right, did you do it? Fantastic. So let's take a look at a sample answer. Of course, this is not a complete conversation. This is a part of the conversation that they are having. So you have the script on the left side of the screen, and I'm going to play, listen, and check out the languages they are using.
Shall we start with this one?
Okay.
How do you think a sightseeing tour might be good for students?
I think you can learn a lot about architecture and history and things like that.
Yes, and also you can visit somewhere very different and learn about other cultures.
Right. What about this sort of activity holiday in the mountains? I think it can give young people exciting experiences and adventures, things they don't get in their everyday lives.
Yes, and they learn to be more independent because they're away from home and their families, don't you think?
I think that's right. Also, they learn to work together to solve problems, so it's good for learning teamwork.
That's an important point, because if the school's organizing the trip, it should be educational, shouldn't it? I mean, students have got to be learning something. And the beach activity day, what about that?
It sounds great, doesn't it? And I think just by doing sports and activities they don't normally do at school, students learn something.
I agree.
Very good. So look how they started the conversation by Miguel by starting inviting Antonia to, let's say, involve her in the conversation, not just starting, okay, I'm going to talk about this one. No, just invite them. How? By asking a formal question like, shall we start with this one? And then it says, okay. And then you start the conversation, and you can also ask a question. Look how he started it. Started with asking a question. How do you think doing a sightseeing tour of a city might be good for students? Asking a question and try to start the conversation with that question. And then let's say she said what she thought about it. She just mentioned it. And then Miguel also adding more points. It says yes, it means I agree. And also you can visit somewhere very different and learn about other cultures. And again, Antonia, show agreement, disagreement, right. And then moving the conversation to the next point. What about this sort of activity holiday in the mountain? Then talking about her opinion. And also she could ask question at the end, but she didn't. But again, you can ask all of those questions that we talked about in order to like invite the other candidate to talk with you. But again, in all of it, they are just building each other's idea, talking about their own opinion, asking each other questions, showing agreement and disagreement, and just move the conversation forward with those vocabulary that we talked about. Also, they're putting it. Now, something else here that is important is using conditionals, grammatical structure of conditionals like this. That's an important point, because if the school's organizing the trip, it should be educational, shouldn't it? Again, using conditionals and tag questions. Remember, we talked about tag questions, like grammar that you should use. Again, here she used it again. It sounds great, doesn't it? Again, using tag questions. Tag questions are very easy to use, but it's very useful in part 3, because somehow you are trying to, it's look like a rhetorical question. It's not a real question. You just invite the listener to agree or disagree with you. Mostly agree. We just want them to say, yeah, true. Yeah, it's correct. You just want them to agree. That's it. Now, let's go to the next part. Here we've got another question. Now look at the question. It says, how could these activities encourage students to do more sport? So you can see, for example, we have professional footballer, we have a school sport day, we have free membership, a weekend doing adventure sport, a visit to a national athletics championships. So these are the ideas around here, and your job is always focus on the question and the topics, question and the topics. Don't get sidetracked and talk about other things. Try to say, how could these activities encourage students? So you have to talk about how encourage. That's what you have to just, these are the main keywords in the question. Always focus on the keyword of the question, and as the conversation is going and moving, again, look at the question and don't just talk about other things. Talk about how could these activities encourage the students. If you talk about other things, you're not going to get some good points. So try to focus on the question. Now, here are some good languages as well here. I'll just put it here so that you can use to talk about these opinions. For example, if you want to suggest ideas, you can use languages like, well, perhaps, because you have to say, how could these activities encourage, right? So you can say, for example, well, perhaps a school sport day, and then talking about your suggestion. I imagine students would see blah, 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 blah in this place. Or what about, you want to ask question, what about free membership? How could this encourage a student? You can ask like this and let the conversation handled by the other partner. I suppose that might be really encouraging because of blah, 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 blah. Or you can also say, how do you think, if you want to ask your partner opinion, right? We said that if you ask questions, it would be really helpful. How do you think about blah, 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 blah? Or do you really think a weekend doing adventure sport would be encouraging? And then they say, well, they talk about their opinion, and then you show agreement or disagreement. You say, well, yeah, I see what you mean. Or that's a great point. That's true. Yeah, great idea. You're right. Or if you disagree, just say, maybe, but I suppose so. But yes, but blah, 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 blah. So here you can show agreement or disagreement. Now, let's try to take a look at how they're handling this conversation together. Again, you have the transcript here, so try to look at the transcript and also listen to see how they're doing it. This one is a complete conversation, so they are going to talk about it in details, and also you can see what the examiner is going to say at the beginning of this part.
I'd like you to imagine that your college is interested in getting students to do more sport. Here are some ideas they are thinking about and a question for you to discuss. First, you have some time to look at the task. Now talk to each other about why these ideas might encourage students to do more sport.
So, shall I start? How do you think a visit to the National Athletics Championship would encourage students to do more sport?
Well, perhaps seeing elite athletes doing their sports will inspire students to take up the sport and imitate them.
Yes, and I imagine students would see how fantastic these people look and how much they enjoy the activity.
Maybe. But it might only interest some of the students, but not others. And what about a talk by a professional footballer? I suppose that might be interesting, because he'll probably describe what life's really like for a footballer, and how, what's the word? How glamorous he is.
I suppose so, but I don't think it would encourage me to start playing football myself. There are lots of people like me who aren't really interested in football at all.
Yes, I see what you mean. And what about the next one? A weekend doing adventure sports. Well, that's just the sort of thing I'd enjoy, and I think lots of students would get interested in adventure sports if they tried them.
That's a good point. And it could be a good, fun weekend, but do you really think many people are going to get involved in adventure sports as a result? They're quite expensive, you know, and you can't do them every day, not living in a big city.
That's true. But you can always go to one of those sports centers with a climbing wall, I think it's called.
Maybe, but I don't think it's the same as going to the mountains to do these things. And not everyone can afford to do that. Now, what about a school sports day? To me, that just sounds, what's the word? Childish? We used to do sports days at primary school.
Well, perhaps this could be organized in a more adult way. You know, with some serious sports for people who were interested, and less serious activities for other people. That way everyone could get involved.
Yes, good idea. And people could be organized into teams, and it could all be made quite competitive and enjoyable at the same time. When I think about it, it could be really successful.
You're right. And the idea of free membership of a sports club is also a great idea. Lots of students would be interested in that.
Yes, but I think that would mainly interest people who already do sports. So I'm not sure it would encourage other people to start.
No. Unless it was also a social club at the same time. I think that would be extremely effective.
Thank you.
Very good, very good. So as you can see, they tried to cover almost all different aspects of this question and the topics, and they tried to have a very in-depth conversation. That's what matters. If you just talk about the options and not really talking in details, you don't look at the different aspects of the same topic, you're not going to get a good mark in this part, because the examiners are looking for more in-depth conversation. And that's why I told you, if you talk about 4 of them in details, it's better to talk about all of them, but not in details. For that reason, you get to get good point in that situation. Now, let's take a look at a lot of things that they used. Again, as you can see, starting with, so shall I start? Try to involve the other person, and starting it yourself, and then asking questions, like, for example, How do you think a visit to a national athletic championships would encourage the students to do more sport? And just asking question and then letting the other candidate talk, and then always showing agreement or disagreement, like yes, and I imagine, and talking about your things. Also, you can speculate in this part, so don't be afraid of speculations. If you're not sure, using the language, perhaps, it might be, it could be, blah 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 blah. These are very good languages that you can use to speculate if you're not sure about it. And also, again, showing disagreement, maybe, but it might only interest, again, showing disagreement here, I suppose so. But I don't think it would encourage me to start playing football myself. You see, try to show what she thinks. It's not always showing agreement. So don't be afraid of disagreeing with your partner. If you have a good reason for it, just do it. If you are not sure about what he's saying and you feel like, no, I don't agree with that, try to do it, try to disagree, and bring up a good reason for it. And that's really good, because it's going to get the conversation move forward, and you can just try to bring other types of ideas into the table. So you're not just talking about, yeah, you're right, yeah, you're right, that's true, yeah. No, doesn't sound really normal. Sometimes we disagree with others, so it's good to do that. And what else we have here? One thing that I just remembered is, whenever you don't know the word, okay, you don't remember the word, you can say, for example, something like this. What's the word? Childish. So what's the word? Childish. You give yourself 1 second to think, instead of having a long pause, instead of having childish. No, that's not good. Instead of that, say, what's the word? Childish, like this. It's better than having a pause if you don't remember a word. Okay, now let's go to the next part and see more examples. Okay, now this one, we're going to take a look at a problem. So let's try to take a look at the question. It says, what would the students find interesting and useful about each of these subjects? So we've got choosing a pet, working with animals, strange and amazing animals, how animals communicate, and protecting animals in danger. So there's going to be a problem, okay? So I want you to listen first and see what is going wrong and what can Irena do to put things right.
Now I'd like you to talk about something together for about 2 minutes. I'd like you to imagine that a famous animal expert has offered to give a talk to students at your school about some aspects of animals and the natural world. Here are some of the subjects he has said he can talk about, and a question for you to discuss. First, you have some time to look at the task. Now talk to each other about what students would find interesting and useful about each of these subjects.
I think choosing a pet could be interesting and useful for students who are thinking of adopting a cat or a dog or some other animal to share their home, so they can find the right one, or one that suits them, and not one which is going to give them problems. And the talk about animals in danger is important for learning to look after the environment, so that animals don't become extinct or disappear. But on the other hand, we see this sort of subject on television all the time, and for students it might not be too interesting.
But
Also, I suppose if there are students who are thinking of becoming farmers or vets, then working with animals might be quite interesting, though it wouldn't really interest me.
Okay. Now, it might happen. It might happen. It's not always going to happen, but let's say 8 out of 10 times, that's not going to happen. But there's a chance that there is a candidate in the exam that has no idea what to do in this part, and he thinks he should talk more than you and not letting you talk, because if he does that, he's going to get more points. which is completely opposite. Because if you don't let the other candidate talk, if you don't collaborate, because this part, as we said, is related to interactive communication. You have to communicate with the other person. And if you cannot do that, you're going to lose point. But what about you that you couldn't talk? What is going to happen to you? Are you going to lose point? Well, basically, no, you're not going to lose point in this situation. You have to try. You have to try to talk. You have to try to stop the person with some languages, which we're going to talk about it in the future. I'm going to teach you in part 4. When we reach to part 4, I'm going to teach you so many languages that politely you can stop the person from talking too much, because it's going to happen also in part 4. But here, what I'm going to tell you is the first thing that is going wrong here, of course, if we go to the next part, is that Miguel, which was the person, the boy that was talking too much, was a very competent speaker. He has a good level. He wants to talk. He doesn't know what to do, but he doesn't understand this is a collaborative task. So what he's not realizing is not giving the other candidate the opportunity to talk. And in that case, he's not paying attention to the instructions. So that's why he might lose some points in this part. But what is going to happen to you in this situation? Are you going to lose points? No. But how the examiners are going to assess your level in that case, which you didn't have time to talk. So in this situation, the examiners will penalize the speaker who talked too much in this part. And in part 4, which is something between these two parts, there are some questions for you, and there are some questions in part 4 that you have to talk to each other and answer them. So in that case, the examiner is going to ask you more questions, is going to let you talk more, and is going to ask less questions from the other one. Is going to ask, let's say, fewer questions, and he's not going to have, like, for example, a lot chance to talk in part 4. So he's going to have, like, maybe for example, you're going to have 4 questions, he's going to have 1 question or maybe 2 questions maximum. So in that case, you have a chance to talk in part 4, and you're not going to lose any marks in this situation. So don't worry about it, but you have to try to talk. You have to try to stop the person with some languages. Just stay tuned in part 4. We're going to take a look at some examples again like this, and I'm going to teach you some languages to stop it. But sometimes it's not working. Like the girl, she's tried to talk, she says, and, but, I think, but he's not stopping. He's just talking. So even if you use some of those languages, again, the person is talking, is not letting you talk, not a problem. Don't worry. Part 4, examiner will give you the opportunity to talk more, and you can show your language there, and you're not going to lose any points in this part. And the other person will lose some marks because he didn't let you talk, didn't ask you any questions, not involving you, so he's not communicating. And that's only because he's never been to any preparation course like this. There are some students that they study by themselves, they don't check anything, they just go to the exam and they just want to pass the test, and they don't know anything about the criteria, they don't know anything about the strategy of the test. And that's a very good thing that you are here, that you're learning this, and you're not making these mistakes while you're having the exam, because you can easily lose some points, just like Miguel. Okay. Now, let's take a look at another thing. We've got another question here, which says, what can you learn about life in different countries by studying these aspects of their festivals? For example, we have traditional clothes and costumes. We have dances and music, special events and activities where they take place, and also festival food. So what you are going to do right now is you are going to listen to each other, okay? You're going to listen to those people that they're talking. Sorry, not to each other. You're going to listen to those people that they're talking. And you have to try to take a look at these things. I want you to take some notes. What notes? I want you to see what phrases do they use to encourage each other, to help their partner, to express an idea, take over when their partner gets into trouble. So these are very good techniques, because you're helping your partner to talk. Sometimes your partner, and he's nervous, she's nervous, even though he has a very good English level, but sometimes because they're nervous or they're never prepared themselves for this part, never been to any preparation course, they never practiced, they didn't know how to practice. Their English is good, but they get into trouble. They don't know what to say. They are just stopped. We're going to see how we can help them in this situation, because if you can help them in these type of situations, the examiner will love it. They see that, okay, this person wants to help when it's possible. Okay, your job is not to help them, but if there is a situation that you can do it, it is beautiful, and probably you're going to get some good marks for that, because it shows that you're very interested to helping others and try to communicate even though they are under stress. So let's listen and see how we can do that. Try to take some notes while you're listening, okay?
Okay, let's see. What can we learn from studying their clothes and costumes?
Well, I think it shows how people carried things in the past.
You mean how they dressed in the past?
Yes, thank you. How they dressed in the past, which perhaps shows the sorts of activities they did and the materials which were available.
That's a very good point. I think we can learn how they looked in the past.
Good. And let's move on to the food. What do you think we can learn from that?
Well,
I mean, do you think it might show us what food was available on special occasions in the past?
Yes, it probably does. So we learn about their past eating habits and perhaps also what they think is still important in the present.
Yes, that's a good idea. Because, of course, festivals change.
You mean they evolve?
Exactly, they evolve. I mean, I think of festivals in my country, and the customs and traditions have changed over the years.
An interesting point. You must have studied this a bit.
Yes, I have a bit. What about dances and music?
Well, I think this is very interesting because I'm a musician myself.
Oh, great!
And I think by playing and listening to traditional festival music, we learn about what is beautiful. What was lovely in the past can still be lovely for us today.
I think that's a very interesting general idea about all these things. That festivals really, join the best things from the past with the best things in the present.
In other words, combine the best things.
Exactly, combine the best things so that,
that's evolution, isn't it? Where the best aspect of the past and present take us onto the future.
Well, we're getting philosophical. I think what you're trying to explain is how we can learn about progress by looking at how festivals change. But what about these special activities?
Okay, very good. Can you see how beautiful was it when they were trying to help each other? It shows that they're listening very carefully to each other. It shows that they are not just talking about what they think and they don't care what the other candidate is talking. So let's take a look at some of the questions. So it says, how is it clear that they're listening carefully to each other, and why is this important? So basically, they help each other with vocabulary, expressing ideas. They react to what the other person says. They invite the other person to speak and express ideas. This is important because they should try to have a normal conversation, right? When you're having a normal conversation with a person and he doesn't know what to say, you will help them, right? You don't just sit there and talk about your opinion. No, you don't do that. You just try to help them to have a normal conversation, because this part is not a formal, let's say, job interview. No, this is not like that. It's a very friendly, normal conversation, and it's good to help each other in some cases like this. Now, let's see what phrases do they use to encourage each other. For example, that's a very good point. Yes, or that's a good idea, or great idea. An interesting point. I think that's a very interesting general idea. So they encourage each other with these words to give the other person a positive feeling so that he can continue talking. Help their partner to express an idea using words, you mean blah, 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 right? Or in other words, blah, 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 blah. For example, your partner says something which is not really related or is not correct, so you can correct it with, in other words, blah, 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 right? And that way your partner says, yeah, 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 you're right, and just move on and continue the discussion. And or take over when when their partner gets into trouble. Using again, I mean, when you see the other candidate is not like, I don't know, and you said just take the control so that you don't have dead air, because dead air is bad for both of you. It shows that none of you have something to say. So it's better to take control in the situation where your partner is like not really, let's say, active, doesn't know what to say. Just take control a little bit, say, ask question. When you ask question, you give the opportunity, you let them talk a little bit so that they don't have any dead air. That's very good. Or using language like so that, blah, 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 so you can continue and saying more things. Now, we're going to listen one more time. This time, let's try to take a look at the script as well, okay?
Okay, let's see. What can we learn from studying their clothes and costumes?
Well, I think it shows how people carried things in the past.
You mean how they dressed in the past?
Yes, thank you. How they dressed in the past, which perhaps shows the sorts of activities they did and the materials which were available.
That's a very good point. I think we can learn how they looked in the past.
Good. And let's move on to the food. What do you think we can learn from that?
Well,
I mean, do you think it might show us what food was available on special occasions in the past?
Yes, it probably does. So we learn about their past eating habits and perhaps also what they think is still important in the present.
Yes, that's a good idea. Because, of course, festivals change.
You mean they evolve?
Exactly, they evolve. I mean, I think of festivals in my country, and the customs and traditions have changed over the years.
An interesting point. You must have studied this a bit.
Yes, I have a bit. What about dances and music?
Well, I think this is very interesting because I'm a musician myself.
Oh, great!
And I think by playing and listening to traditional festival music, we learn about what is beautiful. What was lovely in the past can still be lovely for us today.
I think that's a very interesting general idea about all these things. That festivals really, what's the word? Join the best things from the past with the best things in the present.
In other words, combine the best things.
Exactly, combine the best things so that,
well, that's evolution, isn't it? Where the best aspect of the past and present take us onto the future.
Well, we're getting philosophical. I think what you're trying to explain is how we can learn about progress by looking at how festivals change. But what about these special activities?
Very good, very good. So you can see that how they use all the languages we talked about in order to help each other and try to move the conversation forward and not as stuck in one individual topic and trying to just answer the question. Also looking at these, let's say all these topics around it so that you don't get stuck in one and try to help your partner talk and getting a very good point at the end. Now, let's try to take a look at something here as well. Now, this one, you might say, why we have 6 options here? Well, this is basically before 2015. They used to have like 6 options, but we're going to just listen to it and learn something from it. So don't worry about why it has 6. In the exam, we're not going to have 6 topics. We're going to have 5. But here, as a practice, we're doing it so that you just take a look at that as well. We're just going to practice and see how they're doing things. So let's try to take a look at the question. It says, how could these things help bring in more tourists? Theater, street carnival, boat rides on the lake, open top, bus tours, city marathon, and art gallery. So you have to see Do they discuss all the prompts? Do they take turns of speaking? Which two things do they choose? Of course, which two things do they choose is related to the next part, which is about the next lesson we're going to talk about. But let's take a look at it as well, okay? So let's listen to it and see how they are answering this. Take a look at these languages they use as well.
Now, I'd like you to imagine that your town wants to attract more tourists. Here are some pictures of things that may help make a town more attractive to visitors. First, talk to each other about how these things can help bring in more tourists. Then decide which two things would attract most visitors to the town. Okay?
Right. Shall I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, first there's the theatre. I think that could be quite a good one, because it would attract some fairly rich people and they would spend more in the town.
Yes, but there's only one theater. Don't you think we'd need lots of them to make much difference to the number of visitors to the town?
That's true.
So, how about the next one, the carnival? Think of all the people who go to the one in Rio. Maybe we'd get crowds like that here, or a bit like them anyway.
Well, at least the weather here is fairly good in summer, almost like Brazil. And it'll be really good fun to set up too.
Talking about summer, we could have the boat rides too, so people can cool off a bit in all that tropical heat. That would look pretty good in the town's brochure. Smiling couples in rowing boats, picnics next to the lake, stuff like that.
Yes, maybe. And what about including the bus tour? That's open air too.
I'm not sure. It's only a small town, so it would be rather a short tour, or else they'd have to keep going round and round it. Either way, it might not be very popular with visitors.
The marathon might be better. There's some absolutely stunning countryside around here, and we could get some great photos of people running through it.
Yes, I agree. Though from what I've seen of marathons in other cities and countries, it tends to be the local people who come out to watch them, rather than tourists.
You may be right. Okay, that's 5 of them done. Let's look at the last one, the art gallery.
I quite like that one. It'd show the cultural side of the town, and there are some pretty good local artists.
Yes, and some of them have painted landscapes of the countryside we were talking about just now.
Right.
Very good, very good. Now, there is something wrong here, which, of course, they said a lot of good things, and there's something wrong. One wrong thing that we can see here is that they just wanted to just go to the next one, and just try to talk about all of them. And it's not something good, as we mentioned, for the test. I don't want you to just move on fast to the next one and not saying a lot about each one of them in details. Of course, this is about 2015. Before that, which you had 6, you had to be a little bit faster. But right now, which you have 5 options, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to just talk and cover and just move and jump to the next one and just, okay, that's 5 done, goodbye. No, that's not a good thing to do. It's important to try to have an in-depth conversation. This is the 10th time I'm saying, and not getting stuck in one conversation. Okay, when I say in-depth, you might say, okay, Max said in-depth, so let's 1 minute talk about one option. No, you don't have only 2 minutes. So you cannot just put 1 minute of your time talking about one option. You just have to try to move and go to the next one as well, but try to have in-depth conversation about it. Try to say different things about the top aspects. How could these things help bring in more tourists? So look at different aspects of theater. For example, talking about probably it's something that most people want to do. It's something that attracts visitors, or maybe you say, no, it doesn't. Can talk about it. It's not helpful. I don't think theaters can help and benefit or attract more tourists to the town. So you can have both sides of the opinion. You can say something and then disagree with your partner, and that's how an in-depth conversation look like. So you can try to just talk about different aspects of it and then move to the next one. And as you remember, we talked about how you can move from one to the other skillfully. All right, so also you can see that how they used some questions, some languages, or just underline them, like, shall I start? And then again, I think that could be a good one. And then you see, these are the good languages you can use to just talk about your opinion, or again, asking questions. The next one, it says, how about the next one, the carnival? This is how you can move the conversation to the next one again, not just getting stuck. If you see you're talking too much, ask this question and try to go to the next one and not talking too much about one topic, because you are going to lose time and you don't have much time to do that. And again, talking about summer, what could have the boat rides too, for example? We could have the boat rides too. Which here is referring to boat rides on the lake. They're talking about this one. So again, let's say they are trying to move the conversation to talk about this one, right? Talking about summer, we could have the boat rides too. So here they're moving and they're talking about the next one. Somehow they're not getting stuck in one thing, but they didn't talk a lot about carnival. I guess they could talk a little bit more about it, so that they have more in-depth conversation, looking at other aspects of carnival as well. And the next one, yes, maybe. And what about including the bus tour? That's open air too. So again, you see, they just said very little short thing and then just move to the next one, and they didn't talk in details about the boat rides. So they could talk a little bit more about that one. That's why I'm saying you should have a little bit more in-depth conversation about each one of them and move the conversation forward. And don't use the languages like at the end, okay, that's 5 of them done. No, you don't need to say that. You don't want to. If you say this, it shows the examiner you just want to cover all the options and you're not going to have a conversation. Just want to say, okay, let's just finish. No, don't use languages like that. Try to just talk until the examiner says thank you, and move to the next part, which is the next thing you have to do in part 3 is the next question, which you have 1 minute to talk about it. In the next video, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it in one video. We're going to take a look at the languages you can use for that part. We're going to see how you can answer it. We're going to see how to do it and we're going to take a look at examples as well. So stay tuned and I'll see you in the next video.